In Toronto right now, 9,800 homeowners are doing the math on the same number. 25 days, 1 month's rent. The World Cup made that math possible. And a platform in San Francisco is banking on them saying yes. One Toronto homeowner sees the biggest income opportunity of the decade. One city housing officer says that same opportunity could erase 4 years of work protecting renters. And a platform based in San Francisco takes a cut of every single transaction, whether Toronto wins or loses. Most coverage of FIFA 2026 focuses on the stadiums, the tourism dollars, the opening ceremony. Nobody has run the numbers on the layer underneath all of that. The 9,800 homes that become hotel rooms for 25 days. And what happens to them on day 26. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how the money moves. Who earns? Who takes the cut? What 4 years of housing policy has to do with a 25-day soccer tournament? And the one data point hiding in the hotel price numbers, that tells you everything about where Toronto actually stands. Stay to the end, because the real story is not the earnings. It is what happens after July 19th. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is the largest in history. 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 cities across Canada, the United States, and Mexico. 5 billion people watching worldwide. Toronto hosts the opening match. 146,000 visitors are projected to arrive in Toronto across the tournament window. Hotels are already running at 80 to 90% occupancy in June and July under normal conditions. There is no significant slack in the accommodation system, which means the visitors have to sleep somewhere else. Before we get into the host earnings, I want to show you one piece of data that frames everything else. Hotel prices during World Cup match periods across all 16 host cities. Mexico City, 961% above normal. San Francisco, 370%. Vancouver, 233%. Toronto, 78%. The lowest price surge of any host city on the planet. That is not Toronto being generous. That is the data signature of a market that is already full. Hotels cannot charge much more because they are already at capacity under normal summer conditions. The World Cup is not adding demand to an empty city. It is competing for space in a city that was already packed. And that single data point changes the economics of everything that comes next. Now let us look at the short-term rental market, sitting underneath all of this. Toronto has 9,799 active Airbnb listings. Average daily rate, 171 Canadian dollars. Occupancy rate, 70% year-round. On a normal month, the average Toronto host earns approximately 3,500 Canadian dollars. That is the baseline. Now here is what the World Cup does to it. Deloitte, commissioned by Airbnb, projects that the average Toronto host will earn 2,700 Canadian dollars across the entire 25-day tournament window. Nearly 1 full month of income in under 4 weeks. For waterfront and downtown listings, where average daily rates already sit at 279 Canadian dollars, individual earnings can significantly exceed that city-wide average. Anticipating that regulated Toronto will have a supply shortfall, Airbnb launched its largest ever new host incentive program in February 2026. 1,015 Canadian dollars for any Toronto resident willing to list their entire home for the first time before the tournament ends. Think about what that incentive actually is. It is not a gift. It is an inventory acquisition cost. Airbnb is purchasing supply it does not own, does not insure, and does not manage, so it can earn a commission on every booking that supply generates. Airbnb is also an official FIFA World Cup 2026 tournament supporter, which means the platform receives FIFA branding rights and marketing reach to 5 billion viewers without financing a single stadium, training facility, or infrastructure project. The demand is FIFA's. The network is Airbnb's. the housing stock is Toronto's. For context on what regulation does to these numbers, Vancouver hosts 7 World Cup matches and projects average host earnings of 4,200 Canadian dollars, 55% more than Toronto. The difference is not location, it is supply. Scarcity drives price. Price drives earnings. Toronto's regulation reduced that scarcity deliberately, which is exactly the tension this video is about. To see who actually captures the value, follow one booking. A visitor pays for a Toronto Airbnb stay. 4 actors claim a piece of that payment. The guest pays the nightly rate. The platform takes its commission. The host receives the remainder. The City of Toronto collects an 8.5% municipal accommodation tax on every booking. 4 actors, 1 transaction. Now let us see what each one actually takes home. As of October 2025, Airbnb operates a host-only fee structure of 15.5% of total booking value. On a $2,700 tournament earning, that is approximately 418 Canadian dollars per host collected by Airbnb. The city takes approximately $230 in accommodation tax. The host nets roughly $2,052. Here is the structural fact that matters most. Airbnb's commission is locked the moment a booking is confirmed. It does not depend on whether the host has a good experience. It does not depend on whether the city's tourism projections come true. It does not depend on whether Toronto's housing market recovers afterward. The platform earns regardless. The host earns if occupancy holds. The city earns if both do. One actor in this system has no downside. That asymmetry is worth keeping in mind. The city captures a share through the municipal accommodation tax, temporarily raised from 6 to 8.5% for the 14 months from June 2025 through July 2026. That increase alone is projected to generate 56.6 million Canadian dollars in additional revenue. Every hotel guest pays it. Every Airbnb guest pays it. The tax applies to the same demand the city spent $380 million to attract, which raises the question the city's projections do not cleanly answer. Is this new revenue, or is it a partial return on a very large investment? Everything covered so far is the during. Earnings during the tournament. Tax collected during the tournament. Platform commissions earned during the tournament. The part that is harder to model and that nobody in an official projection is incentivized to highlight is the after. Since 2020, Toronto has enforced one of the strictest short-term rental frameworks in Canada. Primary residence only. No investment properties. No second condos. No vacant suites. Fines for violations reaching 100,000 Canadian dollars. That framework delivered measurable results. 5,000 units returned to the long-term rental market since 2020. Toronto's average long-term rent declined 7.1% to 2,632 Canadian dollars in December 2024. One of the first significant drops in years. The policy was working, and then came the World Cup. For 25 days, any Toronto homeowner with a primary residence can earn the rough equivalent of 1 full month of long-term rental income by listing on Airbnb. The primary residence rule means they cannot do this with an investment property, but they can do it with their own home, temporarily relocating while a World Cup visitor takes their space. And here's what the projections do not track. Some of those hosts will discover something during those 25 days. That the income is real, that the platform makes it easy, that short-term guests leave reviews that make the next booking easier, that the process, once learned, does not require 25 days to justify repeating. The fork in the road is not during the tournament. It is July 20th, and nobody in the official economic projections has put a number on which path more hosts will take. Across all 16 World Cup host cities, Deloitte projects total host earnings of $212 million US. At Airbnb's 15.5% commission rate, the platform collects approximately 33 million US dollars for a 40-day window from listings it does not own, in cities it did not build, for a tournament it did not fund. Earn without owning, scale without building, profit without risk. That model is what makes platform economics different from every previous form of hospitality business. And it is why Toronto's housing regulations, designed for one type of economic pressure, are now being tested by something they were not built for. Toronto's rules are built to handle this. The primary residence requirement limits who can list. The city built platform compliance directly into its bylaws. Airbnb is required to remove listings that lack a valid city registration number. The city raised short-term rental registration fees by nearly 700% between 2023 and 2025. The infrastructure exists. Whether those tools hold when the financial incentive on the other side is a month's rent in 25 days. That is the experiment Toronto is running in the summer of 2026. So who actually wins? The platform wins regardless. Its commission is structurally guaranteed. The city wins if its compliance framework proves stronger than the financial incentive. The host wins if the earnings projection holds. And Toronto's renters, the people whose housing costs declined 7% because of 4 years of careful policy, they win only if July 20th looks a lot like July 18th. And one city running the largest stress test its housing policy has ever faced. In 25 days, 146,000 visitors will arrive, book a place to sleep, watch football, and leave. The platform will have earned its commission. The city will have collected its tax. The GDP numbers will be compiled, and Toronto's housing market will resume, shaped by whatever decisions those 25 days encouraged.